Warhammer 40k. Introduction to the Immortals of Fenris. www.zhaozuiyuan.com. This is the 30th millennium of human civilization, and the descendants of emperors have not yet returned to their throne, and the great expedition has not yet begun. Until an ancient soul met a new wolf owner. Warhammer Fellow, https://www.zhaozuiyuan.com. Chapter 1. Fenris. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. This is the 30th year of human civilization. Nowadays, most people have forgotten the history of this world, and most have faded away most of the anger and hatred they deserve. All that remains is death, beasts, cold, and pain. Fenris is such a place. Fenris should be such a place. On the island of Fenris, in a long house made of fir and wood, an ancient voice is spoken from a young population who appears to be only around 25. That is a complex and interesting vocabulary that can be traced back to the early stages of human civilization, the spiritual words engraved on the Tower of Babel, the spiritual words brutally destroyed by a golden giant. In the next moment, the long house is covered with transparent film, and psychic power, or rune magic, to some extent, dispels the deadly cold. And the young man just looked at the completely closed window, as if he could see the never-ending blizzard outside the window in the polar night. The thing that headaches him is not the weather. He has become accustomed to these things, and since the last 10,000 years, he has been trapped in this ice and snow cage for a long time. Now he has a new trouble. It's a beast, or rather a human, perhaps both sides. At the same time, he is also very immature, filled with the hatred of his wolf mother being killed by his fellow tribe. But to be precise, his mother is also human. Because Fenris doesn't have wolves. This young man is now looking at his troubles, which is a child trapped in an iron cage, with chains on his body, about 14 years old, disheveled. He kept struggling, with beaten and cut wounds everywhere on his body, but most of them had scabbed, which was hard to imagine. The hunting team spent a lot of time subduing this beast, and the king of the tribe, Engel, saw the difference in this little guy and gave him to the young man. Teacher, what a heavy title. Despite experiencing tens of thousands of years to this day, this young person does not know how to teach. He squatted down, attached the iron cage, and whispered. Wolf's child, what's your name? I'm Nadal, a rune priest, the one who guides. The answer to him was roaring and twitching. This wild man, who had not yet had clothes on his body, expressed his dissatisfaction with what humans had done to him. Nadal shook his head and took a step back. It seemed that understanding and calmness were what he needed. He began to naturally take out ancient craft paper and read its contents. Over the course of tens of thousands of years, this book had been flipped through by him hundreds or even thousands of times. And he also had a treasure like a bookshelf, making him the most knowledgeable individual in the entire Fenris. He had guided people in forging ironware, forging houses, and learning runes. I have also served as the king of these barbarians, but I have also experienced the feeling of being overthrown and stepped down. And because of the plate changes in Fenris, the knowledge of this entire bookshelf has been lost countless times, but it doesn't matter. Those things are all in his mind, and as long as he has time, Nadal will write them down again. But at this moment, he saw the wild man staring at his reading movements, and Nadal became interested. He handed over a relatively simple encyclopedia that recorded language logic and sociological content. He originally thought this monster would tear open the pages of the book and feast on it, but he actually stopped moving and flipped through the pages with a flexible tongue like a dog. Although it was slow, it really read in. Nadal felt surprised at the moment, but he continued to read. He is accustomed to time flowing by his side, and even forgot about having a guest here at one point. He will not die, he will not grow old, and a long life brings knowledge, which in turn forms power, but power only brings him pain. Having too much clarity makes it difficult for Nadal to be interested in mundane things, and even to some extent, it sheds some of his humanity. Only knowledge can satisfy him, so much so that when he reads, he falls into a state similar to meditation. He doesn't need too much, he just needs to enjoy knowledge flowing through his surroundings, running through his eyes and visual nerves. Even if he had read it hundreds or thousands of times, he could still be so engrossed that he didn't notice that the wild beast in the cage had already finished reading the entire encyclopedia. When the strange noise woke Nadal up and he saw the beast in the cage, he had already turned into a human. He started covering his genitals with iron chains, trying to use his vocal cords to make a deep, stuttering sound. This is so interesting, it's extremely interesting. No real person can do such a thing, then he must not be a person, but a more unique thing. Ordinary people who want to be extraordinary inevitably need time, which is vast, long, and luxurious. And he had a learning ability that mortals do not possess from the beginning, a constitution that cold winds cannot kill. A book is like a key to unlocking a lock, and Nadal is currently witnessing the opening of a treasure trove. This was something he had never experienced in his long life, a barbarian becoming a civilized person only a few hours later. When the beast in front of him stopped wriggling, he spoke in unfamiliar low Gothic language. My name is Manus. Chapter 2. Manus. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, on the snowy night of Fenris, a young man with blonde hair was galloping. He was running, happy, wearing a thick fur sweater, and accompanied by 2 giant wolves, playing with him. The cold enough to freeze blood is not worth mentioning to him. The natural environment that can kill giant beasts is just the temperature that this child can tolerate. Freddy and Gray, he named his wolf brothers and valued them immensely, because from the moment he came to this world, it was his wolf brother and wolf mother who were taking care of him. Although humans killed his wolf mother, Manus was not angry. Survival of the fittest is the essence of this world, and he understands and does so. Human beings gave him wisdom, gave him a name, and wolves taught him cruelty. Humans showed him indifference and ruthlessness, and wolves told him what warmth and ethnicity are. At this moment, he burst out laughing and sang a running tune song in front of the long house, in the snow. His teacher, Nadal, quickly realized that he was more like a person than a wolf, but he was stronger than both. Nadal saw a familiar feeling in him. That was a thought from another immortal, who no longer has a specific name. It's better to say that he was like this when he was in Terra. That damn guy loves to dress up as a savior and guide. He usually does well and is successful, but the ending is also tragic. For example, being trapped on a cross or something. Thinking of this, Nadal's lips curved into a smile, and this emotion also made Manus feel sensitive. Manus, like a ranger, wandered from one side of the snow field, like a snow dog, asking his respected teacher. Teacher, what are you thinking? I've never seen you smile before. Nadal is the most respected person by Manus, not only because he gave him books and knowledge, but also because Manus could feel the heavy emotional fluctuations of Nadal like an ocean. At this moment, Manus was not yet aware that it was a power called psionic, but he could touch and feel a corner of that power. And Nadal just answered. Laugh. Oh, I just remembered my old friend, and I feel that he has a countless relationship with you. Asked Manus. Teacher, do you admire him? A golden giant flashed through Nadal's mind, standing under the towering Tower of Babel, using his spiritual power to cut off the opportunity for humans to access the mysteries of spiritual language. Just for the so-called longer-term future at this moment, Nadal instinctively clenched his fist, and his emotions immediately stabilized again. He said to Manus. I just don't understand him. I can't understand either. Asked Manus. Is that because he is better than the teacher? Nadal answered. He is more extreme than me, and different ways do not conspire with each other. Manus nodded vaguely, and such an interlude was soon shattered by the arrival of King Engel's hunting team, who had come to greet them. the fully armed soldiers respectfully said to Nadal. "Pastor, and the wolf child, the king is ready." Manus looked at the guys dressed in snow and wind, his body still tingling with wounds from being pierced by a spear. His angry roar made the members of the hunting team subconsciously remember the look of their comrades being torn apart by him. And Nadal slowly walked out of the long house, surrounded by 2 white wolves, Frecky and Grey. Under the leadership of the soldiers, walked towards the place where the king is located. The Russ tribe, the largest collection of humans on Fenris, is currently being discussed by all the residents here, including Manus and Manus. This name was bestowed by the king, representing the dawn of the Ruth tribe, while Riemann means courage and radiance. Nowadays, the cold wind and pain can no longer stop people from enjoying themselves. Rune priest Nadal brought the brave warriors of the tribe, and this news spread throughout the entire Russ tribe. King Engel waited early on the throne in the long house. A large amount of ale and grilled meat were stuffed onto the table, and soldiers danced a battle dance with each other inside the spacious building. The war drums were beaten to a low roar. This is the acceptance ceremony, where the unarmed warriors will open the banquet with battle, and King Engel will therefore determine the future of Manus. At this moment, the long ship docked, and Manus and Nadal crossed the strait to reach the Russ tribe. Nadal felt like he had passed away from the world. The last time he communicated with the people of the Russ tribe was 100 years ago. But Manus appeared more mature, completely without the appearance of a werewolf from before. He wore a thick fur cloak, held a battle axe, and walked forward in the wind and snow. People could no longer recognize the wild beast from the beginning, and Manus walked straight into the long house where the king was. At this moment, he looked like a ready iron fist, with warriors dancing in battle dancing inside the room. Manus put down his battle axe and fought barehanded, 1 against 2. I saw that Manus's sharp claws had turned into fists, and his wildness had turned into tactics. In combat, not only do you move around, but you can also use your fists, knees, and elbows to strike. In just a few seconds, the immense power and terrifying skills of Manus made the 2 most powerful warriors in the tribe fall to the ground. Manus did not inflict any pain on the assassins, but simply knocked the warriors to the ground, perfectly showcasing his human side. Strong. Overwhelming strength. This is the power worshipped by the people of Fenris. Inside the longhouse, a wave of cheers leaped high like a tsunami, and then quickly ceased due to King Engier's soft reprimand. Manus is now kneeling on 1 knee, and King Engier has also announced, "I will take Manus as my adopted son because he has proven that he is not a beast, just as I foresaw when handing him over to Reverend Nadal." People cheered again, while Manus was only looking at Nadal with concern at the moment. As if saying, "Teacher, you don't like crowds, so are you leaving now?" And Nadal couldn't help but chuckle. At this moment, Manus was like a warrior fighting against 2, clearly a puppy that had not yet left its parents. Seeing Manus like this, Nadal could only walk to the center of the banquet. When people saw this ancient wizard coming, they immediately stopped restless. The king asked, "Mr. Nadal, what's wrong?" Nadal looked at Manus's worried expression and answered, "King Engier, I want to serve as a teacher for Manus. He is not an ordinary person, so I need a teacher who meets his abilities. It's more like a command than a request." Normally, Nadal doesn't care about many things in this world, but this time, he met a similar person. Extraordinary people are destined to be lonely, so he wants to exchange his company for a brief but crucial childhood for Manus. Chapter 3. The Solitary of Fenris. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. In Fenris, it takes a lot of time to boil a pot of meat, so people prefer to grill it, as the open flame crackles under the meat due to the dripping oil. Watching the red and white flesh gradually transform under high temperatures is the most anticipated time for the Fenris people, who are constantly on the brink of hunger. But Nadal is different. He enjoys stewing and adding various flavors of food, from what locals consider weeds to precious spices. He doesn't really enjoy eating, often only eating a few times a month because for immortals, 3 meals a day is too annoying. But now it has changed. Manus is still young, and his desire for food and drink is almost endless compared to Nadal. He can eat all the flesh and blood of a snowy mammoth, even suck on the bone marrow, until it is dry and wiped clean, or quickly drink a bucket of ale without feeling drunk on his face. This young man once boasted that he could repay Nadal's knowledge with food from hunting. Now it has been proven that the prey he hunted was barely enough for him to eat, not because of Manus's lack of ability, but because there were only so many prey that could be caught on Fenris. The deterioration of the natural environment will lead to a shortage of food in the tribe, and no matter how smart and powerful Manus is, he cannot obtain anything out of thin air. He has frequently set foot in places that ordinary people dare not go to, hunting monsters that ordinary people cannot kill. Even if he was so embarrassed, he could endure hunger and stay in Nadal's cabin for 1 day every week. His absorption of knowledge is as fast as his hunger, devouring it with great speed. This made Nadal very fond of it. Although Manus looked rough and savage, he was not, nor could he be, a true barbarian. Sometimes Nadal would ask Manus, "You have seen the sewing in the book and learned about the sew called forging. Why not give that job a try?" Manus will answer, "People nowadays need food, not tools and effort, and the cold Fenris doesn't like people sowing seeds. She can move the plates, her soil is like rock, not something that can be sown by human labor." Nadal nodded slightly, although the conversation seemed childish. According to Manus's recollection, he had only spent 75 to 30 days in this world. Fenris has 40-30 days in a year, and the daily time is similar to standard Terra time. In other words, according to human standards, Manus is only 6.5 years old, and according to Fenris's age, he is less than 2 years old. Nadal could guess that the person who forged him had thought ahead of time to make his work pass through childhood as quickly as possible. That guy must be in urgent need of his creation. He's probably not a good father because he not only set up such a short childhood for his child, but also left him out. To be honest, how a person spends their childhood can greatly change their entire life, not only due to environmental and educational issues, but also whether they receive care and love when they are most vulnerable. If he just survived like walking on thin ice, then how could he become an excellent transcendent existence? That kind of problem will remain in his memory, even if Superman's body and powerful intelligence can greatly delay that situation, it will eventually erupt. If one day Nadal needs to use non-reproductive methods to cast his own children, he will refer to the natural longevity of the spirit race, rather than arbitrarily setting the growth time according to his own wishes. Of course, it cannot be ruled out that Manus's father could not control his growth time. After all, Nadal could feel that Manus had a considerable degree of spiritual resistance. Part of him comes from the highest sky, an ancient abyss, a mirror of the entire universe. At this moment, 4 evil names flashed through Nadal's mind. Manus sensitively grasped Nadal's momentary emotions and asked, "What are you thinking? Is it that old friend you dislike?" Nadal is just answering, "On the day when your body no longer grows, I will answer." "Not now, absolutely not, definitely not." Manus appeared a bit panicked, as it was the first time he had encountered a situation where the teacher knew but did not answer. Even if he asked how the stars and the world were born, Nadal could answer, so for the first time, Manus felt that knowledge seemed to be in danger. Nadal didn't say anything, but Manus's beast-like intuition had already sensed something. The two of them were so silent, reading the book with their heads down, and then a few hours later, Nadal suddenly lifted his head. "It's almost time to go." Nadal packed up his things and said to Manus at the same time, "Tell the other members of the tribe that it's time for migration." Manus immediately rushed out of the room, put down his book, and then announced this to the others. 5 hours later, a violent vibration appeared, and the long house began to sway weakly, like a large pudding. In the distance, the wolf pack let out a heavy roar. The light of the grease lamp inside the house began to flicker, but most members of the Ruth tribe simply calmly let the pack beasts bring food and tools. This is not the first time, nor the last time, only the young Manus watched his home sink in the intense tectonic movement. Sitting on a wooden longboat, Manus stared blankly at the islands that had turned into sea level, as if asking, is this migration? It's completely different from what he saw in books. And the people in the tribe only kept thanking Nadal, because even the oldest pastor could only roughly feel when the plate was moving. This time they were able to bring out so many supplies, all thanks to Nadal's undeserved profits. And Nadal has only lived in Fenris for too long. He seems to have figured out the personality of this planet, like a man who has been living with a hot-tempered woman for a long time, and knows about the outbreak before it's clear or bright. Nadal just continued flipping through his books, perfunctorily answering the gratitude of others, because in his long life, he had grown tired of hearing such gratitude or equivalent insults. Clemenus asked Nadal at this moment. "Teacher, can we stabilize the sector?" Nadal immediately shook his head. "This is a natural law, why change it?" Manus couldn't answer, he just said. "If we can live in one place, then in the long run, we may forge a stronger civilization. Then we can rule Fenris, unite the various tribes, and finally." He looked at the endless stars in the sky, and Nadal understood. He was just answering. It's not impossible in other worlds, but Fenris can't do it, and only Fenris can't. At this moment, Manus was not disappointed. He just smiled and crawled into the midst of the fighting soldiers, living his life like a mischievous child. He is too smart, but he is never delayed by his intelligence. He understands what to persist in and give up, but his innate wildness and thirst for stability remain. Probably, it will turn him into a paranoid butcher. And Nadal won't let such a thing happen. Chapter 4. What is Death? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, the day of the endless sea also appeared dull, and a few days of sailing made people even more exhausted. Fortunately, the Finnish people were very lucky. On the third day of the voyage, someone shouted, "New land." The observer on the mast of the long ship said this, and King Engel also ordered, "Get closer." This migration has been quite smooth due to the presence of Nadal, and if he wants, the people of the Ruth tribe will be very welcoming of him to stay. This can avoid tragedies caused by hunger on a long boat, and also avoid throwing away things you like without time to pack them up. The biggest reason is that Nadal doesn't need too much food, just a small cabin, and reads books in the tribe in isolation. For the Finnish people, this is extremely cost-effective. However, if Nadal wants to leave, no one can stay, no one can force the wise to use his wisdom. Now that Nadal only cares about Manus, it is even more impossible. Most people have no intention of breaking this relationship, so Nadal's ship is almost the first row to dock. Nadal is currently observing this continent, which covers a good area and the soil is still hard, but there is dense frozen wood forest, which can be used to forge a home with the plants found in Fenchester. There should also be a lot of food here, which is close to the ocean and the fishing resources have not been exploited yet. Now Nadal nodded lightly, and the other members of the Ruth tribe seemed to have seen a divine metaphor, ecstatic, and began laying their own things. Just as the scorching heat of this good time had not yet dissipated, long and low horns roared from the sea. Nadal looked towards the endless ocean. The horn was the roar of the long ship, and the reason was self-evident. King Engier's warship encountered an enemy, an ancient sea beast that was as huge as a ship, with long and sharp fangs and scales. The whole thing is long and has a ferocious face, like a snake, but it is over 10 meters long. What a huge creature. Sea dragon, people call it that, and its scales are harder than steel, its teeth can regenerate, and it can also be launched, shattering like a bullet. Encountering such a monster on the ocean, even the warriors of the Rus tribe can only endure pain. Nadal felt that King Engel's fate had reached this point. Death is just the starting point, and Nadal didn't even hesitate for a moment before continuing to organize his things. In contrast, young Manus, like everyone else, was worried. They looked at the shore, hoping that the long boat could get close to the shore, but the sea dragon tightly entangled the ship. It must be extremely hungry, wanting those mortal flesh and blood as desserts. The soldiers drew bows and arched, using swords to cut and kill, but faced the sea dragon's sturdy iron scales, which were of no use. And Hai Long just lowered his head and swallowed several soldiers. Like a person holding a plate, even revealing a hint of inexplicable elegance. At this moment, King Engel shouted loudly. "Oh Ruth! I won't submit to death. I won't submit to you either." Then, beneath the aging face, the body that had not been hunted for a long time exploded with muscles, and the spear, like an arrow, was thrown into the eyes of the sea dragon. This made the sea red with blood, but the sea dragon was not killed, and the monster was still preparing to devour all the mortals on the ship. But such an attack also made King Engier a target, and the huge sea dragon collided with its head, as if to retaliate against the attack just now. King Engel flew backwards and fell onto the deck, with blood flowing out of his mouth and eyes. At this moment, Manus couldn't bear it anymore. His superhuman body allowed him to see everything clearly, and he angrily took off his cloak. Then he jumped into the cold sea and swam in the surging waves. And Nadal didn't expect Manus to be like this. Nadal lost his composure for the first time. He, who didn't care about anything, now only cares about Manus, this extraordinary existence like him. He didn't expect it, he didn't expect it. No, he probably doesn't want to, and he won't either. For Nadal, mortals are just mortals, living and dying quickly, and even the disappearance of civilization will appear. The existence of individuals does not matter at all. But he saw Manus constantly swimming, struggling in the cold and piercing ocean, as well as the anger and weakness of King Engel. Nadal suddenly realized. How did he become? Like that damn golden bastard. He has human nature, absolutely. At this moment, Nadal recited an ancient spiritual word. On the distant sea, an orange spiritual shield suddenly appeared, and the sea dragon bit on it, only shining brightly. People looked at the power of this deity, shouting and marveling. Some people are surprised that such powerful witchcraft originated from Nadal. After all, people have only seen his wisdom. Clemenus smiled. He knew his teacher wouldn't stand idly by, he absolutely knew. The young wolf relied on its strength and quickly swam to the side of the long boat, poking its fingers into the wood and climbing onto the boat like a rock. The sea dragon saw Manus and angrily bit him. Manus jumped up and landed inside the ship's shield, but just now, the dragon head was only a few centimeters away from him. Now King Engier is lying on the ground, watching the shield and Manus swimming through the cold sea with a mortal body. Amidst the chaotic and surprised expressions, it revealed a sense of peace of mind for the future of the tribe. He was relieved that with the presence of Manus and Nadal, the people of the Rus tribe would not die. He breathed a sigh of relief as his old body collapsed to the ground, as if he had lost his wish. Something flowed out of his body. Manus has only recently boarded the ship. He had not yet realized that the spear thrown by King Engel had exhausted everything he had. Manus had no clear concept of death yet. He only felt that the people's breath on the ship had subsided, and then his father stopped breathing. At this moment, Manus's mind seemed to have broken. The next moment, he angrily climbed up the towering mast, with wolf eyes and the pupils of the giant sea dragon facing each other. The sea dragon suddenly became timid and roared, ready to dive into the sea. Clemenus just jumped up like a wild beast, drawing an arc in the sky. Insert your fingers into the scales on the head of the sea dragon, and then use your own head to hit the spear that King Engier inserted into the dragon's right eye. The painful and crazy roar of sea dragons can be heard on the sea, like a terrible lament from Zhaozuiyuan.com. It rolls, struggles, dives into the ocean, trading its coldness and suffocation for victory and a chance to survive. Clemenus just grabbed the dragon head and repeatedly bumped into the spear handle, even completely breaking it. After half an hour, the sea level was calm, with only blood constantly overflowing from below. Even Nadal couldn't stay calm. He hesitated as he looked at the sea level. It's over, it's all over. Nadal instinctively thought, is this his own fault? If he had taken action earlier, the situation would have been completely different. He felt emotions churning in his heart at this moment, and the image of Manus before flowed in his mind. He suddenly stopped again and said to the others, "Set up tombstones for King Manus and King Engier, and we will carry their sacrifices and continue to live. I will guide you until the next enough person to become a king appears in the tribe." Nadal's words declared the end of the matter, and people couldn't believe that they had lost 2 heroes in one day today until a sudden cough appeared on the coast. A golden-haired boy trembled as he crawled out of the ocean, holding a 1.5-meter-long sea dragon tooth tightly in his hand. Nadal immediately rushed over and used his psychic power to disperse the water on Manus's body, preventing him from dying from the low temperature. What truly amazes people is the sea dragon corpse that surfaced in a moment. It was a monster the size of a ship, lying on the sea with its eyes closed in death. For the Rus tribe, today is a day of alternation, with the old king leaving and the new king standing. People are shouting at this moment. King Manus! King Manus! Chapter 5. Changes, you changed. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, blood and flesh, bones, souls, flying handlebars, above the sky. From the blood, from the bones and flesh, a new life is born. Go, 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 the departed, in the palaces of the gods, drink up, the war is over, the cold winter is no longer. People beat war drums and dug out their loved ones from the belly of the sea dragon, with flesh and stomach acid, half-cut, skin ulceration, former acquaintances, and strangers. Everything followed the battle, the priests beat the drums, the people sang of death, pulled out the bodies, and dismembered the sea dragon. Just like the lyrics of a folk song, bones, flesh, and blood will become the rebirth of people, whether they are sea dragons or compatriots. Everything will come to a halt at the Pantheon, and everything will continue at the Pantheon. But Nadal believes that death is the interpretation of life by living people. Behind such a lively scene, it tells others that death should not be sad. At the same time, the blood from the dragon's wound and the scattered bloody smell began to gather in the nearby beasts. White bears, wild wolves, giant badgers greedily suck in the air. Nadal looked at the gradually darkening sky and said with a dry corner of his mouth, "Stop it, we don't have time to reminisce." People showed sad and painful expressions, as if speaking. Will the right to remember loved ones be naturally deprived now? Clemenus refuted his teacher for the first time. No, we have it. Nadal felt the gap brought by his growth for the first time now. He was like a panicked father who, before understanding his child's emotions, realized that he had become unfamiliar to him. Next, Manus just said, "I have an idea, teacher, allow me to do it." Nadal nodded silently, but still said, "Is this something foolish or dangerous?" Manus's pale sapphire-like pupils flickered with a wise and determined gaze. Nadal had seen some expressions of foolishness and fear, but there were few such expressions. At this moment, Manus blew his whistle, and Freddy and Gray, his wolf brothers, perked their ears and rushed towards him. Manus picked up his battle axe again, dragging his body that had just recovered from the deadly battle, and calmly walked into the dense forest, leaving only many footprints on the snow. Next, Nadal heard the roar of the Fenris wolf, but it was not from the pack, but a wolf. Then there was a fierce battle for power in the nearby mountains and forests. A few hours later, Manus returned, along with a pack of wolves that had already obeyed him. These wolves are the nearby hegemons, and they have been rooted in this permafrost before humans even set foot on it. In the legend of Fenris, the person who defeats the head wolf will become their leader. Now, behind Manus is a giant white wolf that is 4 meters tall, with deep visible bone wounds on its head. It looks like it can no longer move. In addition, the dense brown eyes in the forest looked at the campsite, making one's scalp tingle. And Manus's first task for those wolves was to slaughtering all the living creatures around that would disturb the funeral. Nadal had to admit that Manus had a clear understanding of what kindness and cruelty were. Distinguishable loyalty, firm stance, as loyal as a wolf, and as wise as a king. And Manus saw Nadal burning dead humans with witchcraft, and those warriors were burned to ashes by psychic flames, then beaten to ashes and scattered into the sea. This is Fenris's funeral, because there is no stable soil, people only leave their loved ones' skulls, and the rest is scattered into the ocean or forest. They also firmly believe that their loved ones have ascended to the pantheon, enjoying endless wine and delicacies. And when Manus and Nadal looked at each other again, they spoke in unison. Manus. Teacher. You have changed. After speaking, the two of them fell silent for a moment. They were extraordinary beings, but now they were like children, unsure of how to express their emotions. No matter how many books you read, how many monsters you kill, or how many years you have gone through, you have forgotten the most basic things of humanity. Dare to love, dare to hate, dare to say, dare to do. Timid is cowardice, caring is concern, bravery is bravery, but the longer you live, the more bonds you have, and the more hesitant your final actions become. Finally, it was Manus who spoke first. Teacher, you're starting to care about those ordinary people. Nadal answered. Manus, you're starting to call them mortals. Nadal has become like Manus in the past, and now Manus has become like Nadal in the past. Just like time overlaps at this moment, but what Manus needs is to become a king, and what Nadal needs is to regain his heart. Two people looked at each other and smiled, then sat on the snow. Next, the people of the Ruth tribe grilled and sliced the heart of the sea dragon, and according to the tribe's honor, those who kill prey must eat the heart of the prey. They believe that the soul of prey resides here, and eating the heart represents health. If someone who is not a hunter eats it, they will be cursed instead. And they also divided a few pieces for Nadal, as they believed it was Nadal's witchcraft that gave Manus a chance to hunt. This honor is shared by two people, but it will not fade away due to how many people enjoying it together. However, when Nadal saw the sinister dark red flesh with blood vessels, he doubted whether the barbarians had cooked it properly. He took a symbolic bite, feeling dizzy and overwhelmed by the bloody smell, and then Manus naturally brought the Nadal portion as well. He was like a bottomless pit, with a heart the size of a turkey, but Manus just chewed, swallowed, and finally belched with ale. People saw that the soldiers had finished their honors before they began to joyfully split the body of the sea dragon. Every piece of flesh, every bone, every inch of skin, is an invaluable treasure for the Finnish people. At this moment, Manus looked at the laboring people and said to Nadal. Teacher, that's why I was born in this world. Nadal didn't answer, he just nodded silently. He is not the father of Manus, nor is he his blood relative. He cannot decide what Manus wants to do and what to do when looking for the book garden www.zhaozuiyuan.com. But this is the best, caring and not being chaotic can make things develop better. Clemenus said the next moment. Teacher, is it okay for you to eat something in a day? I feel weak all over when I can't eat 10 kilograms of meat. Take some of this, Hai Long gone. What does your book say this thing is full of, vitamins? Nadal rubbed his temples, he was not used to those bloody things, and then pushed them away. I am not an ordinary person and naturally do not need vitamins. It's better to give them to those who need them more. Manus buttoned his nose and took a large piece of dragon liver in one gulp. Nadal's eyebrows furrowed as he watched, wondering if it was contaminated with his own seasoning. Well, that's the way it suits him. the person eating with a knife and fork is not a Finnish person. However, overall, Manus has changed, but for Nadal, he remains the same. Nadal has also changed, but for Manus, he is still like that. At the end of this farce, whether it was a funeral or a banquet, the wolf pack loyal to Manus also returned. While Manus was counting the wolves, he saw Freddy and Grey. Among his wolf brothers, Grey's abdomen was cut open by sharp tools. And Frecky spat out something, which was a hand belonging to humans and not a member of the Rus tribe. The atmosphere in the entire hall remained silent to the freezing point, after sacrificing many soldiers, and now encountering other tribes. People were anxious and uneasy as a result, and even Manus had seen such a situation for the first time. Only Nadal said calmly, "Go prepare, Manus. I believe you can lead the Rus tribe towards the right path." Chapter 6. Now, Future. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. War cannot be avoided on Fenris, and the overlapping settlements of human tribes represent a shortage of resources. Lack of resources means famine. In the face of famine, people have no good or bad or kindness, only animal desires, tearing apart everything. But is this absolute? What is the origin of all pain? Now, Nadal sits in a long house made of sea dragon skeleton and leather, constantly wandering left and right, walking. In more than 30,000 years, he rarely felt so restless. Because the brief lives of his loved ones were not worth mentioning to him, now he has forgotten the appearance of those people, Clemenus. He is living in front of himself. For Nadal, Manus is still the child curled up in prison a few months ago, although he is now 2 meters tall and can eat a mammoth at a meal. But now Nadal is not clear about Manus's ideas. At this moment, Nadal took a few deep breaths, looked at the still unlit sky, and then decided. First, read a book. Now, he is flipping through the craft paper he wrote himself, but he is not lost in thought as usual, instead becoming more restless. He doesn't want to wait anymore. What worries him is not that Manus wants to kill, but that he doesn't understand the matter. Manus is still young, I should ask him. He muttered to himself, but suddenly stood up. In the newly built hall of the Rus tribe, the warriors of the tribe are discussing matters related to war. In Fenris, the contact between two human tribes is not non-existent, but the probability is relatively low. After all, compared to the harsh climate here, humans are really not something that is too exaggerated. But for those living on Fenris, any slight change can lead to a different fate. Becoming a king and defeating an enemy, that's all. At this moment, Manus looked at the old soldiers who were discussing incessantly. Their opinions were useful, but mostly used for hunting. For example, encirclement and interception, such as encirclement and pincer attacks. Murder is quite unfamiliar to them. From this group of savages, Manus could feel simplicity, cuteness, and simplicity. This made him wonder if that tribe was the same, and such thoughts made him unwilling to go to war. No, to be precise, Manus subconsciously felt that those people were also his own people. That's right, my people. Manus's mind seemed to have been struck by lightning, and he pondered and determined an idea. He patted the table, making everything quiet, except for the constantly swaying ale glasses on the table, expressing his dissatisfaction. At this moment, the Wolf King spoke up. I want that tribe to join us. A group of old soldiers questioned. What? On the outskirts of the Rus tribe, a young man in a robe stood at the entrance of the hall. He was Nadal, but he eventually came. A few minutes later, Manus walked out of the door that was a bit too small for him, and then saw Nadal's appearance in the wind and snow for the first time. Teacher, he said in surprise. Konatar is just answering. I'll confirm your route. You made a choice, didn't you? Manus nodded, his golden hair dancing with the wind and snow, and the black leather armor on his chest outlined his plump physique. His sharp gaze turned towards the side of the wilderness. I want those people to become members of my tribe, I want them to willingly join the Ruth tribe. At this moment, Manus's breathing became rapid and he looked seriously at Nadal. It seems like I am asking my teacher for affirmation of my ideas. Nadal said. That's right, quite right. Although Fenris resources are scarce, more manpower can expand the exploration scale. Looking for a book garden www.zhaoshuyuan.com. One island cannot feed everyone, so let's have another one. With such a small population in Fenris, we can no longer be addicted to fighting. Your dream is to leave Fenris, so you can't rely on one person's strength. Manus nodded hastily at this moment, like a child affirmed by his father, filled with joy in his heart. He scratched the tip of his nose and said slightly embarrassed. I think this idea is a bit naive and I haven't had the courage to say it yet. It was your waiting here, teacher, that inspired me. Can Nadal ask again? But if they don't obey, what will you do? Manus had a slight lag in his body and immediately answered. I won't have more mercy towards them. Only those who know the overwhelming gap between me and them have value in surviving. Nadal did not refute, he just said. Remember, your existence, my existence, is destined to do things that ordinary people cannot understand. Getting their support is what we need, and it's natural to deal with people who can't understand you. Don't be hurt by kindness, don't suffer from kindness, be as sensitive as a wolf. Knowing good and evil, discerning loyalty and treachery. Now, let's go and do what you should have done. Nadal laughed. With me here, even a whole legion cannot enter. Manus nodded firmly, feeling that at this moment, there was an invisible thrust behind him, a warm and powerful thrust that would not retreat. He said to Nadal. Thank you, teacher. Nadal cursed at this moment. Disgusting, this is not your style, go ahead. Chapter 7. Wolves. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, Fenris, the only and largest polar continent, a group of people are stumbling forward. They were unaware of the arrival of the Russ tribe, but were searching for their missing brothers, a small hunting team. The Drake tribe is an aging human colony, and in Fenris, aging is a commendable term. Being able to live to physical fatigue in such a painful place is usually due to their extraordinary abilities, while the average lifespan of the Finnish people is around 10 years. If it were a standard Tesla year, it would be between 33 and 35 years old, and being able to reach 40 to 50 years old would be considered old age. So the Drake tribe is not fragile, on the contrary, it has wisdom. Although the Ruth tribe is also very ancient, the Drake tribe has existed on this continent for a longer time. They have been understanding and learning here for generations, and they have been living here for 60 years before the next large-scale plate movement in Fenris. And the most powerful warrior among them is Othni, who is young, just of age, but full of experience. He started hunting at the age of the 5th Fenris, and now it is his 2nd year as a warrior. His spear can pierce through the spine of a house-sized snow bear, like a bow and arrow, as fierce as a gust of wind, and this has taught him arrogance. Because his tribe has no stronger warriors than him, and he believes that there will not be any in the future. Now he is walking on the snowy plain with dozens of brothers, and the endless white color is eye-catching. If he sees such a scene for the first time, that unlucky person may suffer from snow blindness. But for the Finnish people, this is their daily scenery, white, meaningless white. The warriors of the Drake tribe painted a dragon on their chest with red paint, imitating the posture of a giant dragon perched on a rocky mountain. Drake means long boat in the Finnish language. They are a migratory tribe, but when they arrived on this continent, they were conquered by the giant dragon. The symbol of the long boat changed to a dragon, and the migrants stopped and took root on the ice sheet. At this moment, Othni asked his brothers to stop, and he cautiously lifted the white fur coat, using the snow-white as his base color. He crouched forward like a badger, as his sensitive eyes caught sight of a blood spot in the distant forest. That's red, dark, suffocating. Othin walked over, stopped, and thought. That is an ice crystal. The blood froze at the moment it splashed out due to the extreme cold of Fenris. Night, yes. He died at night, on a cold night. The marks of blood splattering appear sharp, indicating that the artery has been torn open and has a strong sense of compression. Something is pressing down on his neck, biting it open, causing blood to spill out. There is no doubt about the sharp and vicious fangs of the Fenris wolf. Solved the case, a tragic death, a reward given by Fenris to the loser. But this is not a patrol point for the wolves. People and wolves do not invade each other. This is a requirement of the Drake clan and their secret to survival, so, that's not right there. Something has broken the balance, like a stone that has been stuck on the ice for thousands of years, shattering everything and shattering it to the ground. Drake has a myriad of thoughts, he is smart, young, and capable, and he can do it. This is a trace from half a month ago, similar to the time when the hunting team went missing, and it can basically be determined that it is one's own brother. But why did the wolves suddenly attack? Drake smiled again, he was definitely daydreaming. There weren't so many surprises on Fenris, but there was a lot of chaos. Coincidentally, the wolf had planned a new hunting spot, which was normal. He planned to go back and tell the others that the wolves had changed, but now he saw a tree in the distance gone. Gone, and collapsed are two different concepts. Only humans can use trees, and someone is logging. Othin's hair stood up at this moment, but it was not fear, but excitement. When was the last time hunting other humans? He couldn't remember clearly, but he understood that hunting his fellow tribe brought a strong sense of satiety. Humans can store food, they have women and children, and they can hone their combat skills. This is a simple and abnormal need, just like a child's, like a child who enjoys playing and can remove the limbs of insects without any moral burden. Othni is such a simple person, with his breathing becoming rapid and white mist spitting out from his mouth. He quickly ran to the vicinity of his tribal team and was ready to tell others that war was coming. He is fast, very savage, a Finrish, a standard Finrish. He is like a wolf in human clothing, enjoying the status quo on Fenris more than anyone else, even more than guys like Manus and Nadal who want to go to the starry sky. He cheered and jumped for it, but when he arrived, he saw his team facing a formidable enemy. He looked at the places where people were looking. That is a low shrub, which is not important. Next to it is a forest, pitch black and dark, equally unimportant. Zhaozuyuan.com. Then there is endless snow, everywhere. Finally, Othni locked onto a dazed figure in the distance, slowly moving forward, looking only a small at least 200 meters away from here. Human beings. A human. He joyfully grasped the spear, which was his first trophy. He wanted to turn this guy who dared to walk alone on the wilderness into his own trophy. Let his head hang on his bedside, as favored by the veteran warriors of the Drake tribe. The premise is that he is strong enough. Othin looked at the person, he was getting bigger and bigger, he was moving forward, moving forward. In just a few seconds, Othni began to see clearly the thick cloak on his body. In a few more seconds, he could see the height across from him, at least 2 meters. Then in a few seconds, a monster appeared in front of them. That's not a mammoth, not a giant bear, but something even more terrifying than a dragon. Othni swallowed his saliva, to be precise, dozens of people from the Drake tribe timidly retreated. Because the thing in front of him looks like a person, it looks like a person, but something is wrong with him. Wildness told Othern that he was not a prey, he was the prey. Then the monster spoke, his voice deep and crisp. He has blonde hair and blue eyes, a messy beard, but no weapons. He looks like a person and speaks the same way, but Othni is not sure. He hasn't seen this thing before, at least on Fenris, he shouldn't exist, but it looks. He is very adapted here. The monster is now speaking up. My name is Manus and I come from the Rus tribe. You can call me Wolf Lord, King, Storm and War, or Master. Chapter 6. Wolves. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, Fenris, the only and largest polar continent, on Asaheim, a group of people are stumbling forward. They were unaware of the arrival of the Russ tribe, but were searching for their missing brothers, a small hunting team. The Drake tribe is an aging human colony, and in Fenris, aging is a commendable term. Being able to live to physical fatigue in such a painful place is usually due to their extraordinary abilities, while the average lifespan of the Fenris people is around 10 years. If it were a standard Tesla year, it would be between 33 and 35 years old, and being able to reach 40 to 50 years old would be considered old age. So the Drake tribe is not fragile, on the contrary, it has wisdom. Although the Ruth tribe is also very ancient, the Drake tribe has existed on this continent for a longer time. They have been understanding and learning here for generations, and they have been living here for 60 years before the next large-scale plate movement in Fenris. And the most powerful warrior among them is Othni, who is young, just of age, but full of experience. He started hunting at the age of the 5th Fenris, and now it is his 2nd year as a warrior. His spear can pierce through the spine of a house-sized snow bear, like a bow and arrow, as fierce as a gust of wind, and this has taught him arrogance. Because his tribe has no stronger warriors than him, and he believes that there will not be any in the future. Now he is walking on the snowy plain with dozens of brothers, and the endless white color is eye-catching. If he sees such a scene for the first time, that unlucky person may suffer from snow blindness. But for the Fenris people, this is their daily scenery, white, meaningless white. The warriors of the Drake tribe painted a dragon on their chest with red paint, imitating the posture of a giant dragon perched on a rocky mountain. Drake means long boat in the Fenris language. They are a migratory tribe, but when they arrived on this continent, they were conquered by the giant dragon. The symbol of the long boat changed to a dragon, and the migrants stopped and took root on the ice sheet. At this moment, Othni asked his brothers to stop, and he cautiously lifted the white fur coat, using the snow-white as his base color. He crouched forward like a badger, as his sensitive eyes caught sight of a blood spot in the distant forest. That's red, dark, suffocating. Othin walked over, stopped, and thought. That is an ice crystal. The blood froze at the moment it splashed out due to the extreme cold of Fenris. Night, yes. He died at night, on a cold night. The marks of blood splattering appear sharp, indicating that the artery has been torn open and has a strong sense of compression. Something is pressing down on his neck, biting it open, causing blood to spill out. There is no doubt about the sharp and vicious fangs of the Fenris wolf. Solved the case, a tragic death, a reward given by Fenris to the loser. But this is not a patrol point for the wolves. People and wolves do not invade each other. This is a requirement of the Drake clan and their secret to survival, so that's not right there. Something has broken the balance, like a stone that has been stuck on the ice for thousands of years, shattering everything and shattering it to the ground. Drake has a myriad of thoughts, he is smart, young, and capable, and he can do it. This is a trace from half a month ago, similar to the time when the hunting team went missing, and it can basically be determined that it is one's own brother. But why did the wolves suddenly attack? Drake smiled again, he was definitely daydreaming. There weren't so many surprises on Fenris, but there was a lot of chaos. Coincidentally, the wolf had planned a new hunting spot, which was normal. He planned to go back and tell the others that the wolves had changed, but now he saw a tree in the distance gone. He remembered there was a tree in that place, and he almost died there. Thanks to that tree, he was not torn open, so there were traces on the tree body. Scratches that make his memory fresh. And, losing and falling down are two different concepts. Only humans can use trees, and someone is logging. Othin's hair stood up at this moment, but it was not fear, but excitement. When was the last time hunting other humans? He couldn't remember clearly, but he understood that hunting his fellow tribe brought a strong sense of satiety. Humans can store food, they have women and children, and they can hone their combat skills. This is simple and innocent, just like when I was a child. Just like children who enjoy playing, they can remove the limbs of insects without any moral burden. Othni is such a simple person, with his breathing becoming rapid and white mist spitting out from his mouth. He quickly ran to the vicinity of his tribal team and was ready to tell others that war was coming. He is fast, very savage, a Fenris, a standard Fenris. He is like a wolf in human clothing, enjoying the status quo on Fenris more than anyone else, even more than guys like Manus and Natal who want to go to the starry sky. He cheered and jumped for it, but when he arrived, he saw his team facing a formidable enemy. He looked at the places where people were looking. That is a low shrub, which is not important. Next to it is a forest, pitch black and dark, equally unimportant. Then there is the endless snow, looking for the book garden www.zhaoshuyuan.com in Fenris, that's all like this. Finally, Othni locked onto a dazed figure in the distance, slowly moving forward, looking only a small at least 200 meters away from here. Human beings. A human. He joyfully grasped the spear, which was his first trophy. He wanted to turn this guy who dared to walk alone on the wilderness into his own trophy. Let his head hang on his bedside, as favored by the veteran warriors of the Drake tribe. The premise is that he is strong enough. Othin looked at the person, and his blurry figure began to grow larger and larger, while he just walked forward normally. In just a few seconds, Othern could already see the thick cloak on his body clearly. In a few more seconds, he could see the height across from him, at least 2 meters. Then in a few seconds, a monster appeared in front of them. That's not a mammoth, not a giant bear, but something even more terrifying than a dragon. Othni swallowed his saliva. To be precise, dozens of people from the Drake tribe timidly retreated. Because the thing in front of him looks like a person, it looks like a person, but something is wrong with him. Wildness told Othern that he was not a prey, he was the prey. Then the monster spoke, his voice deep and crisp. He has blonde hair and blue eyes, a messy beard, but no weapons. He looks like a person and speaks the same way, but Othni is not sure. He hasn't seen this thing before, at least on Fenris, he shouldn't exist, but it looks. He is very adapted here. The monster is now speaking up. My name is Manus and I come from the Rus tribe. You can call me Wolf Lord, King, Storm and War Man. Chapter 7. More direct methods. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, one person, a group, looking at each other feels a bit comical. Although Manus was tall and powerful, it did not stop the large hunting team of around 50 people, let alone the notorious temper and directness of the men of Fenris. And Manus is currently pondering whether there is a problem with his wording. Can't they understand Gothic? How about trying the Fenris dialect? Until one of their leaders, who was quite young but had a sharp figure, walked out, he said. My name is Othern, Manus of the Ruth tribe. Did you kill our hunting team? Manus scratched his head. It was his first time communicating with people from other tribes, but Frecky and Gray felt a stranger and came to take a look. I didn't expect the smell of gunpowder to be so strong. After much thought, it was indeed better to take action directly. The Fenris people understand this better. At this moment, Manus took a step forward and punched directly, with a terrifying speed like a bullet. Othni quickly dodged, but was only scratched by his fist and his cheek was torn, as if it had been cut by a knife. Manus only realized that his strength had increased, almost causing the mortal to be seriously injured, which was why he tilted his fist in the end. During this period, Manus's ability to control his body has become increasingly powerful. But Orthian just shouted. Attack! Manus didn't answer either, he mentally figured out how to knock a person unconscious without damaging their physical abilities. Previously, he underestimated his own growth a bit. After witnessing the death of King Engir and his adoptive father, and taking over the responsibility of being the king of the Rus tribe, Lemanus's body suddenly grew. If he had been a young wolf before, and now he is a youth, although his physical growth has not yet stopped, the difference between him and the previous young wolf is not even a speck. And recently, Manus began to feel a person in the starry sky, constantly calling out to him. He pondered while punching, knee tapping, and elbow tapping, while the mortal spear was of little use to him. More precisely, he could easily break those weapons. At this moment, about 50 Fenris warriors form a group of 6 and begin to consume in a hunting mode for large animals. The hunting wisdom of the Drake clan uses spears to create an advantage in attack distance, with 6 people surrounding the prey and trapping it. Then, by stabbing, and killing each time, one's stamina is exhausted. Manus praised this highly, as although this hunting strategy requires highly skilled warriors, it can also ensure that the maximum strength can be preserved when hunting large animals. And the 6 of them work together. If someone's weapon is broken or knocked unconscious by Manus, then their vacancy will soon be filled by other brothers. So far, it has been orderly and orderly. Spears and blades, fur and armor, people and people, make up a simple and durable battle song. And in order to shake the prey, those members of the Drake clan also sing around the prey. They shouted in the quaint Finnish language, boosting morale while deterring prey, with a deep and rhythmic roar that made Manus feel like he was at the banquet. At this moment, he couldn't help but sing high. Oh! Heaven, stars, gods, all gods. The heavy voice caused confusion among the Drake warriors around them, their songs mixed up, and their pace and level of substitution also deteriorated. And Manus just sang and laughed at the same time, playing like young wolves, but every time he punched or kicked hard, he would make a man fall on the snow. It wasn't until Manus finished his temper that he realized it. Fighting is really fun. But when he saw the Fenris men covering their stomachs and cheeks on the snow, he realized that he wasn't here to fight. So, can you join the Ruth tribe? Othin was punched in the chaotic battle just now, to be honest, he can't stand it anymore. Although it was hitting his shoulder, he felt that his right half had lost all his intuition. He has let go of his previous playful mindset. As a warrior, he cannot tolerate his tribe becoming a toy for others. He had seen and knew what the losers were in the tribal struggles of Fenris. Even if he realized the huge gap between himself and Manus, he didn't want to give up. Othni was panting heavily at the moment, but he couldn't fall down, he shouted. The forest. The snowfield. Drake's warriors. On the snowy plain. On the snowy plain, I will eventually run and be free. He kept repeating, lifting his weapon, and the spear had been broken by Manus, with only half of the broken wood and a slightly damaged tip. But he still rushed forward, singing and trembling, timidity and bravery coexisting, which is the current situation of the Finnish people and the reason why they were able to survive. The spirit of the wolf and the spiral of the wolf are in its bloodline. Now, Othin is not a child anymore. He has grown up, and when facing the terrifying monster of Manus, he has grown up. Not physically, but spiritually, he has become the true Fenris man. And Manus couldn't help but laugh, today was so fun. He reached out and pinched the broken wooden spear, with strong force touching each other, and the wooden spear handle shattered into powder. The strong momentum caused Othin's right hand to fracture completely, making a clear clicking sound that made his teeth ache. Kiashuan just jumped up, his arms couldn't move anymore, so he used a bite. He pounced on Manus's face and went to Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com to kiss this monster. Just Manus told him with his body that his softest part is even harder than his hardest part. Manus hammered his head over, and Othin felt the sky spinning and the earth spinning. His teeth fell on the snow, blood-stained, and a mixture of white and red. And it was only then that Manus realized that he had exerted too much force on this mortal. This mortal, is so capable of fighting. He rubbed his nose a bit awkwardly and wanted to ask if Othern could join the Ruth tribe now. But Orson has completely fainted. Manus can only ask others. Is your tribe close to here? If it's not close, let's go to my tribe. My teacher should treat him well. The Drake clan hunter lying on the ground trembled and asked. What exactly do you want to do? I've never seen someone like you before. Manus thought for a moment. I said it from the beginning, I want you to join the Rus tribe. Is this guy lying on the ground your top wolf? I won, and now you are all my subjects, right? The hunter nodded weakly, becoming a king in a defeated enemy, willing to be dealt with casually by Manus. Clemenus just picked up Othern, put his shoulder up, and patted the butt of this mortal who could be beaten. Then he felt his head itch, so he rubbed his forehead. He feels a bit wrong. Manus lowered his head and looked at the hint of red on his fingers. Did his forehead bleed? It's extremely interesting. Manus had a higher evaluation of Othern and felt that today's fight was worth it. Chapter 8. Husky comes with wolf cubs. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. In the Ruth tribe, temporary long houses have emerged, using only a few large oak trees and then animal tendons, skins, and bones to form the periphery. Fenris's beasts are not as cute and fragile as the little animals on Terra. Even if they have died, the remaining bones, meat, and skin can still withstand wind, snow, and cold. The most commonly used fuels by people are also animal fat and charcoal. Therefore, in Fenris, life and death are synonymous. To live, one needs to die, to kill others, to prolong one's life. Here, in the hell of Fenris, the only one is not gentle tenderness. There is no need to worry about the storage of meat here. Low temperature allows you to hang meat at the door or inside the house. The cold will lock in the bloody smell inside, prolonging its storage time, while people only need to find ways to get more. So far, the Rus tribe has obtained those things, some of which have been accumulated from the previous gathering place, and some of which have been newly acquired. As a king, Manus is very qualified. He resists enemies, searches for prey, and provides more food for his people. The abundant food resources on this continent have also provided Manus with more for people, but for Nadal, these days are a bit lonely. He stirred the boiler in his own long house, which was made of the skin and bones of a sea dragon, and could withstand the most terrifying cold in the world without collapsing. This privilege was also deliberately delineated by Manus, who wanted others to know that Nadal was indispensable and inviolable to him and this tribe. But this approach caused Nadal's house to occasionally stop, frolic, and discuss how powerful the wizard was, whether it was Manus or the wizards. The children left. Adults will carefully tell them that under the eaves made of keel, there are people you must not disturb. At the same time, Manus spends most of his day hunting outside. He doesn't go with the hunting team, but instead enjoys monopolizing. He may have enjoyed the contrast when people saw him dragging a giant object, and then were surprised and joyful. It may also be that I feel this way is the most efficient. Or just enjoy battling monsters and venting their inexhaustible energy. Perhaps all three of them are present. But for Nadal, there is no more lively atmosphere in front of the door, and no more young wolves who come here to study every week. His life seems to have returned to the years when he had not yet met Manus 6 months ago. Although he has spent many days like this, it is not difficult to endure. During this period, he also cooks medicine to help others. Treats seriously injured soldiers, or, at the strong request of the people of the Rus tribe, pretend to be mischievous and bless them. Regarding this, Nadal only feels that the placebo effect cannot be underestimated, and sometimes his nonsense may really save lives. Now he sprinkles his cooked broth in front of the soldiers who come to pray, with a scent of thyme and cinnamon, making them feel blessed. May the Lord of humanity above heaven grant you courage and the blessings of the gods, Amen. Nadal doesn't like religion, he can only stew it in one pot, which is both like witchcraft and has some other style, although those young warriors are very useful. They feel that they are strong and fit at this moment, capable of killing a snowball bear, just like Manus, because Manus was taught by Nadal. When the men left excitedly, the long quiet place of Nadal, the finally arrived hustle and bustle, came to a halt. He looked at the floating and rolling pieces of meat in his pot, and bored himself with adding a little licorice. Actually, it's not bad either. This is the norm. Nadal pondered and instinctively rubbed the tip of his nose. It wasn't until he regained consciousness that he realized he had learned some bad habits with Manus. He sighed, stopped the fire, looked at the broth that could be cooked, and took out the root plants that were baked in charcoal fire, similar to potatoes. It has carbonized its surface and needs to be carefully removed from the outside to taste. Inside, it was soft and sweet, and one of the few things in this place that reminded him of Terra. He broke open the hot root and took a sip of the broth, but the next moment, a rough voice shouted. "Teacher! Teacher!" The cold wind poured in from the wooden door, destroying the rare accumulated temperature here. Nadal rubbed his temples. "Quiet. It doesn't exist." He asked. "Manus, what's wrong?" Manus just walked over and placed a dying young man on the bed. Nadal saw the badge on his chest clothes, which was a tribe he had encountered while traveling, capable of singing and fighting. At this moment, he understood who the neighbors of the Ruth tribe were, and then he looked at the young man's injuries. Very heavy, missing front teeth, facial abrasions, broken arms, arterial compression, bruises on the body, and a bit of hypothermia. And there is no doubt about this. Nadal frowned and said. "Manus, is this what you called?" Manus is like a little dog doing something wrong, even if he can eat a mammoth and drink a bucket of ale for a meal now. But when facing Nadal, he still retains the greatest respect and trust. Nadal couldn't get angry even when he looked at Manus like this. What should I say in front of him? Manus was still the poor young wolf from 6 months ago. Zhaozuiyuan.com. Secondly, compared to extraordinary individuals who can accompany him for thousands of years. This young man is just an ordinary person with a maximum lifespan of 100 years. Nadal's attitude towards the latter is similar to his own child accidentally stepping on a mouse. However, Manus cared so much that Nadal could only take action. His name is Manus. Take those greasy things on the seat, they are ointments that can reduce swelling. You should know where you hit and just paint according to it. Then when Manus went to get the ointment, he walked up to the unconscious young man and grabbed his shoulder, facing the angle. Click, click. Surprisingly, his arm was snapped back by Nadal, a seemingly powerless man. It can only be said that he has spent so many years with his human body and has become a good doctor due to his long illness. Who knows how many times he broke himself? After all, if a fracture occurs on average every 50 years, then Nadal has experienced at least 600 or more fractures in his lifetime. It seems that living long is not useless. At this moment, the tall and imposing Manus walked over, taking off the clothes on the young man's body. The wounds had already overflowed with blood, wetting the inner wall of his fur coat. The indoor temperature made his complexion much better, and Manus gently and carefully applied ointment to him. Although Manus may appear rough, he actually understands the complexities of human relationships and gentleness. He just chose barbarism instead of becoming barbaric, and Nadal began reading with peace of mind. Looking at Manus working in bed, he felt a little lucky. Although he felt like he had a big dog at the moment, maybe that day he will surpass himself a lot.